Phil pray for missionaries? Just, yep, whatever. In general, or pick, if one of them pops in your head, pray for them. Go ahead. Amen. All right. Quick announcements here. We can, are we live? Oh, amen. All right. So quick announcements. Father's Day next week. Ladies Bible study on the 27th. Fifth Sunday fellowship and communion on the fifth Sunday of the month. So that's the 29th, last Sunday of this month. Other things that are happening. We have, y'all pray for your preacher. I'm going to do a funeral on Wednesday midday. And so I will not be at noon Bible study. Sorry. I'll be doing a funeral. And the following Wednesday, I will be at Muscatatuck Urban Training Center doing a mission with our military and a foreign military. And so that'll be during the day. And I think I'll be back, no problem, Wednesday night, but I will miss noon Bible study again. So it'll be 2 weeks in a row. Brother Ramsey may cover for me next week, but he won't be able to cover for me this week because he's at camp. So we are having church Wednesday night. Nothing changes as far as that goes. Just extra things to pray for your preacher for while we minister to other people. And then, let's see. Tuesday, we are not doing Good News Youth Center unless somehow Brother Travis gets free, but I don't think, I've already told him we're not. So Tuesday, we're not doing the Youth Center this month. It's on the calendar next month, but I don't know if we're going to be able to next month either. But it's the same, it's 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock on Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month. And then in August, I think we go back to the evening time. So that might be, we might be back to that. Outside of that, I think that was it. We talked about things this morning, and we talked about a lot of stuff this morning. Yep. Anything else? We can talk about later. Yeah, that's going to be on the last Sunday of this month, so June 29th. And pray for our folks that are at camp this week, Brother Ramsey, Brother Lawrence, and Sister Emma. They're at camp. They're on their way to camp right now. Pray for travel mercies as they travel. And it was kind of a scrambling scenario to get everything rolling and going and stuff. And so, church parking lot over at McGregor was hopping, and they took off for camp at 5:30, and so they should be getting there here in about an hour or so. And it'll be a nice week of camp. Pray that God will work in all of their lives, that everybody will grow, and people that need to get saved will get saved. Amen. So that's going on this week. The month of June, things are happening. July, we're going to have a fifth Wednesday. It's at the end of the month in July. So we'll have an outreach in July, or is it August? It's July. August has a fifth Saturday. So, and then we'll have, we've got some things going on in July also. And I think Pastor G said something about a missionary in June. But I thought it was July. So I'm pretty sure it's July. What? No. We have, I don't know. I don't know where it is. We do have a missionary coming eventually. But I'm not finding it. So Pastor G will let us know. Maybe it's next week. I don't know. Thought I had it on my calendar. But we'll get it put in the bulletin once we figure out when it is. But I believe it's a missionary to Colorado. Church planting in Colorado. So, but anyhow, those are things going on. Let's go ahead and make ready for the offering. And this thing's on, right? Huh? Yeah. Yep. All right. Brother Ezra, why don't you pray for our offering? How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that He should give His only Son to make a wretch His treasure. How great the pain of searing loss! The Father turns His face away, as wounds which mar the chosen one bring many sons to glory. Behold the man upon a cross, my sin upon His shoulders. Ashamed I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. It was my sin that held Him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath hath brought me life. I know that it is finished. I will not boast in anything, no gifts, no power, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ, His death and resurrection. Why should I gain from His reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: His wounds have paid my ransom. Amen. All right, how about hymn number 100? Somebody sent me a text about the sermon this morning, and I don't have their phone number saved in my phone. I don't know who it is. Anyhow, hymn number 115. Teens, head on out. All right, so 115. I'll respond after. after service. So if you're watching live and you sent me a text, I'll respond after service, but text me your name because it didn't come up in my phone. Sorry. All right, 115, I must tell Jesus. If you're here and you text me that's fine also. You can also text me your name because I don't have it in my phone. All right. I must tell Jesus. My voice is a little not so happy because of that first song. Those high notes are a little hard to do. Those are up there. All right, let me find my key. Don't throw keys at me. Let me find one. I must tell Jesus all of my trials. I cannot bear these burdens alone. In my distress, He kindly will help me. He ever loves and cares for His own. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, I cannot bear these burdens alone. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, Jesus can help me, Jesus alone. Amen. We're going to sing a little more, but this mic is not doing what I need it to do. On the mixer, all the way to the right, there are two sliders. Is the one on the far right at unity, or U, like 0? Okay. How about the one that says pastor? Is it at unity? The one, okay. Now, on this over here, give me one click on the monitor, please. One click on the monitor to the right. One click on the monitor. Test, 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 test. That didn't do anything. One more again. One click to the right. Test, test. All right. Is that too loud, y'all? Is that okay? There's a little bit of an echo. Not as bad as this morning? Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's sing another verse, and if it's not right, we'll do it again. We'll fix it. All right. All right. Yes, exactly. I must tell Jesus all of my trouble. He is a kind, compassionate friend. If I but ask, He will deliver. Make of my troubles quickly an end. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, I cannot bear my burdens alone. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, Jesus can help me, Jesus alone. Tempted and tried, I need a great Savior, one who can help my burdens to bear. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, He all my cares and sorrows will share. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, I cannot bear my burdens alone. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, Jesus can help me, Jesus alone. Oh, how the world to evil allures me. Oh, how my heart is tempted to sin. I must tell Jesus, and He will help me over the world, the victory to win. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, I cannot bear my burdens alone. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, Jesus can help me, Jesus alone. Amen. That's important to do. Tell Jesus. Amen. All right. Tonight we're doing things a little different. I didn't give you study notes, and we're not doing our Landmarks of Baptist Doctrine tonight. I figured, so we've got folks out on vacation. We've got folks out at camp. We've got folks out of their minds. We got all kinds of things going on, and so, yeah, me too.
Away from the microphone.
I am? Over here? I'm louder over here?
Yep.
Yeah, that's because there's a speaker right there, and a little bit of feedback, just a little bit. So, yeah, this is still on also, but that's okay. So, so what we're doing, and this is a little different. Oh, that's why. And it's dead. Those batteries we put in there are dead already. This thing, well, I don't know. Maybe the batteries are just bad. I don't know. We charge the batteries to death. We charge them to death. Yes. So, I mean, you know, you put them on the charger, and then they charge all day, and then you leave them on the charger, and they charge all week. And yeah, we need to figure out something. I don't know. One of these days we'll figure it out. So, so tonight we're doing what I called it Sunday review, and so a little bit different. We've never done this before, I don't think. I think it can be helpful. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with either one of two things. All right. Each of you, especially those of you that were here this morning, either something that God impressed upon you in Sunday school or the morning sermon, or a question for clarification on either one of those, and then I will give response and probably break into preaching and not stop till we're done. So that's kind of the plan tonight. So it's a little different, but it's reinforcing what you got this morning. Does that make sense? So I'm going to try not to bring the fence into it, okay? Oh man. So if you missed the message this morning, you got to watch it online. So it was fun. It was a fun time. I brought a fence panel in here and was swinging it around and doing all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So it was a fun time. You know, sometimes those things come up. So what's on your hearts from that? Yes, ma'am.
The fence.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Before I answer the question you haven't asked yet, okay, let me clarify. Can you the Zoom thing? Yeah. My wife's running the sound, or the sound and video. So let me clarify something. First of all, you have to consider the context, okay, and who's speaking. I am a father of 4 children. And so my particular slant on language and humor is what they would call dad humor or dad jokes. And so there are a lot of plays on words. That whole illustration was a play on words. The fence was representative of the word offense, like I am offended. I am offended or offended. We say offended, but it's O-F-F-E-N-D-E-D, right? So I'm offended. And so I was using the fence as an illustration to explain, like, I have taken offense to something. Now, not literally a fence, but I did literally take a fence. Right. But taking offense in a lot of ways is similar to carrying around a fence panel, and saying, because there's barriers that are put up because of your offenses and all of that. Yeah. Yeah. Now, they all got it. Especially my kids, because I'm their dad and they know how I talk and stuff, and so they're like, oh, fence. Yeah, of course, dad joke. Yep, here it goes. They knew the whole illustration as soon as I walked in with the panel. So but I've never done it before, but it fit. And so The key really is forgiveness. That's really the key. The answer, the application, how you deal with that is forgiveness. You get rid of the fence. You get rid of the offense, not the actual offense, but you get rid of the offense. And the way you get rid of the offense is you forgive, or you get forgiveness. Because in some cases, you're offended because of how someone responded to a wrong that you did to them. Now, sometimes we're offended because of a wrong that's been done to us, but we don't have to carry offense. We don't have to carry an offense and be offensive or take an offensive action approach, right? When you're offending, you're the one causing the offense, right? You don't want to become an offender, right? And now somebody go get me a piece of a car. No, I'm kidding. Offender, you know. Yeah, you know, when you're an offender, you are regularly causing fender benders. Yes. So that's the illustration was meant to be, you know, I am offended. I have taken offense, and offense, I was like, I've taken offense, I'm getting it, you know, and I went and got it. And so that's why it fit for that illustration. And it also kind of relaxed everybody into getting the points without it being, because when you start talking about bitterness and offense, a lot of times it causes people to be offended, because people who are bitter usually don't want to let go of that bitterness. And so when you tell them they're bitter, like just flat out tell them they're bitter, it's like, take that. What are you going to do now? You know, that's how they take it. But in reality, what you're trying to do is you're trying to convince them that they have an issue. And I was using humor and illustration. So I'm carrying around a fence panel, you know, and for anybody that was actually dealing with that, I don't know if anybody here was, but anybody that could possibly have been dealing with that, they could get the hit by the truth, not by the fence, but hit by the truth in a way that it's funny at the moment, but then it starts to sink in and they're like, you know what, he's right, I need to get right. And hopefully that's the way, and that's not the way you always deal with things. You know, you don't always joke about, but some things you have to lighten for the sake of being able to penetrate, right? It's not wrong. It's communication. And so sometimes you have to lighten things for the, like if somebody comes up to you and they're like, Becky, I want to tell you that you're absolutely wrong about this thing you did. And you know what? They might be right that you are wrong, but the way they approach you shuts off the opportunity for them to convince you that you were wrong. Yeah, but if they're given a funny skit illustration and it's a group setting or whatever, and they're not telling you directly, but it's happened. Like the preacher's up here preaching about offense, and you know you have an issue in that area, and you know he's talking to you, but he's talking to everybody, and so it broadens it broadens the audience, and it lightens it just enough to where you're like, you know what he's saying is right. But every once in a while, though, it goes like this, and then you need somebody to say, hey, you know, when he was talking, like somebody that knows you that was there, and so you need somebody to say, Eric, you know, when he was talking about that offense thing, that applies to you in this way. Oh, right? Those are things that, and I'm just picking on Eric, you know. I don't know if it applies to him or not. No. But we all have a propensity to, we all have a tendency to be offended. Yes. That's how I started it. I said everybody gets offended. But the problem with me is holding on to that. That's right. That's right. That's why I said you got to let go of the fence. You got to let it go. You got to give forgiveness. Well, that's one-on-one counsel. We don't need to have that publicly. But it is something that, you know, you do have to work through, and you have to talk about it, and you have to talk about what it is that's causing the problem, and what you are able to, because you can only do you, right? I can't, like, if somebody's regularly trying to cause me problems, then I have to deal with that in my own heart properly. In some cases, now y'all just being real, sometimes it does mean that there needs to be a temporary separation. You know, if someone in your life is like accosting you constantly, you don't have to keep on with. Now, I'm not talking about like if it's a spouse or there's all kinds of scenarios. I'm not talking about like divorce or whatever, but like if there's you just cannot get past the you can't function in life because these things are a constant block of functioning, then it may mean that you have to step back and say, okay, look, tell the person you love them, and that for everyone's good, you need to have a temporary separation of physical separation. Like, Brother Bella, I love you, but I love you over there, not over here. I'm not saying you go legal with it. I mean, that's maybe a more intense step. I mean, but if there's physical harm being done, then yeah, a legal step's not a bad idea. If there's physical harm going on, then yeah, a no contact order might not be a bad idea. I'm not talking about him poking you, okay? But really though, when there's if it's somebody in your home, sometimes there's a point where you say, you know what, we're going to have to deal with this issue, and it has to be dealt with, and it has to be dealt with calmly, and it's not like I'm going to destroy you, or I'm going to get you. You're not being malignant. You're not being filled with malignity, as the message was, but instead you're taking a step back and saying, okay, how can we best resolve this issue? And if best resolving the issue is for 2 weeks, get out of my house. I love you, but for 2 weeks, don't come around. And during that 2 weeks, we're going to pray for each other and think about how we can best benefit one another according to how God would guide us to do so in His Word. And so, now, 2 weeks may not be the right number, who knows? Whatever the situation is, every situation's a little bit different, and sometimes you've spent a long time building the tension and building the problem, and you've got to like tear that thing down and deal with it. And so, those are things that happen, and sometimes with family even, there are things like that. I've got adult children, and our relationships are fine, as far as I know. But the thing is, though, there may come a time when hard or tough love has to be in play, where I say, I love you, and I think it is harmful for you to continue down this path, and so, it may be necessary for you to live somewhere else. Now I only have one adult child living in the house, and I hope she doesn't leave for a long time. But she got to stay in line. You got to do the right thing, right? But the same thing, but you have those kinds of things that sometimes end up being issues there. As an adult, I've lived with my mom before, and there are boundaries that are different when you're an adult than when you're a child. But then there are still things, when I lived with my mom for a while as an adult, I was paying my own bills. I didn't pay her rent because she didn't require it, but I would try to help here and there or whatever if I could. But I knew it was her house. I didn't come and go whenever I wanted to. I had my own job and everything in my own life. I was going to college actually for part of it, and I'm like, I would let her know. I wasn't perfect with it, I was only like 19 years old or something, but I was like, this is what my week looks like. Now, of course, I grew up back in the 1900s, so like most of you, actually all of you grew up in the 1900s, so I went to Bible college for a little while, yeah. And then didn't for a while, and then I did for a while, and yeah. So I've been to a bunch of schools actually, but yes, it's at that time I was at it was Heritage Baptist University at that time, is down in Greenwood, and so now they're Indiana Baptist College and Heritage Baptist College. They split. One's down in Franklin, one's in Greenwood, and then 0. Yeah, you don't have to go to college to be a pastor. You just have to be biblically qualified. College is not necessarily a bad idea, though. So when I became a pastor, I had not finished college. I became a pastor in 2011, and then I finished my bachelor's degree, which wasn't even a ministry degree, in 2014. And then I did my master's in 2016 and my doctorate. No. I mean, as a chaplain, I have to have a master's degree as a chaplain in the military, but not a pastor. Yeah, because it's federally, or it's regulated by the government.
But then you still have to do
So
certain things to be
to be a pastor, you biblically you need to be ordained, and so ordination isn't a function of a school. It's not an educational function. It's a church function. So like back in December, we ordained Pastor G. I think he has an associate's degree in missions, or maybe it's general education, I don't know. But we didn't ordain him based on his education. We ordained him based on his ministry experience. And so ordination has to do with what we're commissioning the person to do. And so for him, it's church planting and things. And so now I was 28 years old, no degrees at the time, and I was ordained to do church planting and pastoring. And so that's what I did. So those are as far as education and stuff. But living at home with my mom's, I knew there are rules, guidelines. I knew, and there are rules that were never written down, never even spoken. That's right. But not everybody knows. Or they don't care. Or they know, and in their mind, they're like, I just can't do that. And at some point, somebody has to have that adult conversation with them and say, you're an adult, and there are expectations. If I continue to let you do, and this is a conversation I've had with adults. I've also run transitional living ministries and things, with adults, and I was a counselor at the mission for a while, and I've had this kind of conversation with people. I say, if I continue to let you go down this path in your life, and I'll give you a specific scenario. A guy living in a transitional living space, not paying his bills. Part of the deal was you pay a program fee, and you take care of your own food, and you take care of these things. He was eating other people's food. He wasn't paying his bills, and causing problems with other people. I said, okay, don't try to think who it is. Stop. And I said, if I let you continue down this path, I am hurting you. We're not talking about what you're doing. We're talking about if I continue to enable you to make destructive decisions, you will never learn how to take care of yourself because I'm not making you do it. If I'm paying your bills, and that's the way it was usually when somebody couldn't, that's why we quit doing the transitional living space, because I made sure people's bills were paid, even if it meant I personally paid the church for their program fee. And so, and that, and then I worked 30 hours a week dealing with their drama in that house. And praise God, that house has been remodeled, and it's up for sale if you know anybody that wants one. It's the one Travis and Courtney are selling. It wasn't mine, no. It was our church was renting it from another church, and then that church wanted to sell it. We weren't interested. Travis bought it, rehabbed it, and now selling it. So that it was that house. So that scenario, I said, you are gonna have to learn that you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your hygiene. You have to take care of your health. You have to take care of your provisions, your food, your bills. You have to take care of those things. You cannot count on other people to do that. Now, helping someone really needs to be carefully evaluated, because I can help someone, I can get my wallet out and I can pay a bill for somebody, get a card out and slap it down, pay a bill, and I helped them.
Next month you take the card out and pay another.
But what happens next month? Yeah.
Same thing.
What I've done is I've actually not helped them. I have created a dependence for them to depend on me now every month to take care of that thing. And what I've done is what I have done is I have created a situation here where they have, now there is a military tactic. This isn't exactly great, but there's a military tactic where it's called the fifth pillar. And so typically you'll have, like, I can't really demonstrate it here very great. Maybe I can like this. So we're dealing with a really small scale here. All right, so you see I have 4 pillars here. Okay, so 4 pillars, right? They're holding up the structure, holding up your life, holding up your security, holding up your everything, your life, your whole reality, holding up your reality. Now, if from a military perspective, and I'll tell you right now, there is a country, starts with a C, ends with a Heine, that is actively fifth pillaring America. Okay? Here's what they do. They insert themselves as a structural component of life. And what they do is they begin to place within, I don't have enough room there. They begin to place, we'll just pretend, they begin to fortify their pillar so that enough of the structure depends on the pillar that when they knock this pillar out, doesn't seem so bad. But then when they knock this pillar out, our stability starts to shake. And then when they knock this pillar out, oh, hey, everything's fine. We still get cheap prices at Walmart. Everything's fine. And next thing you know, all it takes is a little nudge. Come on! All it takes is... Okay, China's pretty strong, all right? All it takes, though, is they have replaced the pillars of our society. They've replaced our stability. Now, this is an active tactic that people use. And then, eventually, it all comes crashing down. What's that? That was a strong pillar. It would have been better if I used actual pillars. It would have been less stable. It would have fallen over. But the idea there, it's a military approach for taking out the enemy. And by the way, what other other countries, like Russia, that pillar involves immorality to deteriorate the other ones. But anyhow, sorry, I'm going military on you. But in a household, in a life, in a person's life, when they begin to use other people to like put up the to build up the the support in their life. Now, there are legitimate areas where that is proper, like when you're doing missionary work. When you're doing missionary work, the way you build that, I'm just going to put one up here not to mess with it, but the way you build that, if you're going to go to a foreign field and you're not going to be able to produce income while you're there, what you do is each one of these, like say that represents like 10 churches. What you do is you get a bunch of them that are supporting you for a little bit. Not a lot, because if you lose one, that's why we don't support missionaries for like $500 a month, because if we can't support them anymore, they lose $500 a month. So right now we support missionaries for like $60 a month, and people are like, "What's $60?" Well, when you take $60 and you multiply it by 200 churches, it's decent, it's stable. Probably not 200, like 100-ish, something like that. It actually, the average cost for a missionary to go to the field is close to $10,000 a month. And so they have to have support from a lot of places.
They need at least that much money when they go.
They have to have funds to get there. They have to have funds for, all of the, visas and flights and things. They have to have money to set up a home there. They have to pay bills there. They have to take care of their family. It's a process. It's a process. A lot of missionaries, in foreign fields, it takes usually 3 to 4 years to go from I want to be a missionary to I'm in the foreign field. And when they're in the foreign field, usually the first year to 3 years sometimes is learning the culture and the language. And during that time, if a missionary is working a job, they're not doing the missionary work that they're there to do. And so, but that's a proper way to do it. But the thing is, like the average American single mom or average American single dad or young adult or whatever, they're not missionaries. And so it's not the responsibility of churches or family members or friends or the government to prop them up and take care of them. It's their responsibility. And when people do prop them up like that, now, y'all know missionaries don't just walk into churches and say, "Give me $50 a month." No, they say, "This is what God's burden is for me. He's given me this direction. I believe He wants me to go to this country, and we're going to go plant churches, and here's what this country's about. I've done my research. I've went and checked it out. This is what, this is what I've been doing in the ministry." And then you get to see about what they're doing. And they show us this is what we believe, and we see, oh yeah, we believe the same, and you're going to do the same thing that we would do if we were there. And so we call that deputation, because when we take them on for support, we are deputizing them. They're our little deputy that goes on our behalf and preaches the gospel for us over there, And so, and we are participating in that tiny little bit that we support them to go do that, right? But it's not helpful, it's actually harmful to do that for, like, I've got 4 kids. If I were to just have all of them live in my house and I take care of them, it would be bad for them. Now, obviously, they're all kids, so when they become adults, can't do that. It's not good for them. Now, there are circumstances where it can be helpful, like my son's going to basic training. I say, "Hey, when your lease ends, y'all come stay at our place, save some money, go on to training. Your wife hang out here, save money, so that you can set yourself up well over there. As long as you're being responsible and saving and doing that, we're good." Now if we said, "Hey, move in, I'll take care of you and pay your bills and do all," First of all, any man that has I'm not trying to be like mean, but any man that has like a proper thinking brain can't live that way. They'll be depressed. They cannot. You have to participate somehow in your livelihood, in taking care of yourself, because if you don't, God designed us to feel wrong for that. We have to be involved, and that's. So anyhow, that aspect though, and I'm probably I'm probably counseling a little bit, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep it general so that it can help everybody. But that aspect of things, now, that being said, that doesn't mean if you've got somebody you're propping up at home, it doesn't mean you go home and you say, hey, pack up and get out. Tonight's the night. Go. Don't be rash, but have a plan to help them help themselves. And where that comes in, you can't go back and change the past. And so all we can do is say, okay, here's what we've been doing, and I've realized that this isn't helping you. And so what I need to do to help you is I need to take some steps to give you a little skin in the game. So by the end of June, and you come up with, and you don't even have to come up with something. You say, by the end of June, what is your plan to make sure that you're participating in your care and in your needs? How are you going to let's take one step in the next 3 weeks. One step. And if you make that step, we'll keep going. If you don't make that step, we're going to start talking about different arrangements. And not being mean, and because it's loving to help people out, but it's not loving to hold people down. And when we help people out to the point where they're not helping themselves out, we're holding them down. And so it's a step by step, but if we've gotten there, it's, you know what? We learn. I mean, you can be on this planet for 200 years and still learn things, okay? So it doesn't matter how old you are, how many things you've gone through. You can still say, well, okay, I've been doing this. It's not been good. Well, now I know. So let's start making changes. And if you put, the thing is, if you put it on that person, what's your plan? How are you going to get, like, okay, what do you really want to do? Like, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to be down there? What do you want to be when you grow up? It doesn't matter if they're 50 years old. What do you want to be when you grow up? I still think about what I want to do when I grow up. I'm 42. But you look down, you say, okay, if you want to get there, how are we going to get you there? I'm not going to take you by the hand or pick you up and carry you over there and drop you down over there. And you won't make it when you get there if I do. So how are we going to get you there? It's like, it's like, and I don't necessarily want to always talk about like wealth building and money and stuff, but that's a real thing. I'm a business owner. I have a business degree. I do those things, okay? And like finance and life and things, if you want to be, and I'm not saying that you should aspire to be wealthy. That's not a biblical aspiration. Biblical aspiration is to be godly. But if you want to be successful financially, the way you get over there, say over there is like your bills are paid in advance and you've got money in the bank and you've got investments and you're set. If you want to get over there, you don't get over there by playing the lottery. You don't get over there by a get-rich-quick scheme. You don't get over there by just somebody dumping a bunch of money on you. Because if I walked over to you and gave you a check for $10 million and you were living here and you just go cash that check and then you try to live over here, it will be gone in 2 weeks. Because you didn't know how to deal with $10 over there. How are you going to know how to deal with $10 million over here? God only gives you more when you do right with what He's already given you. That's why I tell people it doesn't matter if you make 10 cents a day or $10,000 a day, you tithe 10%. Why? Because if you won't tithe on 10 cents, you won't tithe on $10, and you won't tithe on $100, and you won't tithe on $1,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 or whatever, because you won't ever get more because you're not doing with it what you ought to do with it. Now, there are other principles of sowing and reaping and such, and that goes beyond your tithing. What do you do with the other 90%? Do you put anything a way for investment to grow your equity, your value. You have to do that. If you don't, and you're just paying, you get money to pay bills, well, it comes in, it goes out, it comes in, it goes out. You never make any gain. And so you have to say, okay, I'm going to pinch off 10% over here, and I'm going to put it on gain. I'm going to put it over there so it can grow into a tree over there. I'll take this acorn, I'm going to throw it over there. You're not cutting off a tree branch and trying to put it over there. Don't take 90% of your income and try to invest. You take a little bit and you invest, and you put it toward growth. Same thing goes in your everyday life, right? When you talk about health, you don't change your health overnight. You take a step and you make a little change, and you make that change permanent. And then after that change is permanent, you say, this is easy, I can do something else. And you make another little change, and you make that change permanent. And then you make another little change, and you make that change permanent. And by the time you get over here, you got all this change. You got 50 pounds lost. You're in better shape. But it didn't happen. It did happen kind of fast, but it was like 2 years. And so most of it in like a year and a half. But you still, it's little things. Because here's the thing. You're like, I got to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to stop eating. How long does that last? 2 weeks, and now you're eating more than you ate before you started. Because you tried to make too big of a change, and you couldn't sustain it. Same thing with finance. Same thing with exercise. You go to the gym and you work out for 2 hours and you haven't worked out for months, you won't work out for months again. Go for 10 minutes. Say, well, 10 minutes isn't enough. It is if you do it every day for 2 weeks, and then 12 minutes every day for 2 weeks. And then you just keep incrementally increasing it so that it's not a big hit all at once, right? Other areas of life that we deal with? What are other areas of life that we deal with? Or we can make these relationships? Yeah, you don't go from single for years and years and years to married tomorrow. I mean, unless you're me, but I'm just kidding. No, I met my wife in September. I asked her out in December. We got married in February. Actually, no. Yeah, I asked her out in December. We dated December, or like the middle of December through February 9th, and then I proposed to her on February 9th, and we got married February 11th. I think it's going to work out. We've 21 years and 3 months so far. So, almost 4 months in a few days. So, but any of those things, oh, by the way, relationships, if you've built a problem in your relationship, whether it's your marriage or your children or your parents or your siblings or whatever the relationship, if you've built a problem in your relationship, typically you find out about the problem after you've made all these little incremental bad things that you've done, and now all of a sudden there's this massive problem that's built up, and the other person's looking at you saying, that's enough. Don't call me anymore. You're not my brother anymore. You're not my friend anymore. That's too much. You say, you know what? You're right. That is. I'm going to leave you alone for a while, and I'm going to fix this. And then I'm going to fix this. And then I'm going to fix this. And then I'm going to fix this. And a bunch of time goes by, and they're like, hey, you're not so bad after all. But you're still not my friend. It's okay, I'm going to fix that. Now, I'm not saying if you've been divorced for 10 years, go after it. No. It's done. So, but I'm saying if you've damaged a family relationship that's repairable, it's going to take a little step. Now, sometimes, though, you have to make all those little steps without them noticing or even knowing that you exist. And then after years, they look over and they say, he's not what I remember him to be. Something's changed. You didn't maybe even didn't contact her. They just noticed. They heard from somebody else. Did you hear what so-and-so's going? Man, this is, no. And they start seeing, they're like, man, hey, hey, we're having Thanksgiving. You come over. We want to hear about what happened to you. And then you get to give them your testimony, right? I mean, but each of those, all of these apply to the situation that you're thinking about, and the situation that you're thinking about, and the situation you're thinking about, and the situation you're thinking about, and the situation you might be thinking about, and everybody, it applies to each of those things. Whether we're talking about family, friends, your personal health, your finance, any of those things. It's step by step, incremental. Now, I know this doesn't all go together with the fence, but the fence brought it because oftentimes we're dealing with a fence, not the panel, but a fence, because of all of these little things, that they all add up. You get success in any area of your life typically first through very small addition. You can't get into multiplication until you've done addition for a long time. So typically, when it comes to like retirement planning, you typically need to invest addition, little bits, until it gets big enough to start working on multiplication. And even with the multiplication, you're usually only looking at somewhere between 5 and 20%. I know it's a big spread, but max you're looking at like a 20% gain. But usually that's if your leverage is bigger. And so the bigger your leverage, the bigger the gain. Same thing goes with every area of our lives. Now, here I am, a math guy, everything. I'm talking about like personal relationships, but math goes into that. We're talking about music. Math goes into that. I hate math, but I've learned that it is life. Like everything is some sort of mathematical calculation. And I know it might be overthinking it. You'd say, well, are spiritual things mathematical calculations? We won't talk about that right now. But yes, sometimes they are, yes. But that's the thing. It's little by little. Or as the kids' Sunday school song, right? Little by little, inch by inch. Not a yard, that's far. Just an inch, that's a cinch, right? Never stare up the stairs, just step up the steps. Little by little, inch by inch, right? It's a Sunday school song for kids, right? But it's life for adults. Little by little. How are we going to get there? If you're counseling a child or a grandchild of yours that you're helping take care of, or you're counseling an employee, or you're counseling a friend or whatever, it's always, what can you do right now? Just a little thing to make a little bit of progress in the right direction. Now, if you're doing bad stuff, that's different. If you're doing big bad things, stop. Because when I like big, if you're married and you're cheating on your spouse, that's a pretty big thing. Don't do it. So there's the fix. Now, it doesn't fix everything. You still have to do those little incremental things in showing that you love and showing that you care and rebuilding that relationship. But that big thing erased all those little things. And so, and it takes 10 times as many of those little things to rebuild that. And, so those are all little things, that are, and by the way, there are little things that become like, I have to do that. Like when you start doing little things like for your spouse or whatever, or for a friend, it's like, I have to do that. I have to make coffee in the morning for my wife. When she gets up 10 minutes early and starts grinding the coffee maker, I appreciate her doing that, but I'm like, man, no, I'm not in trouble. She doesn't expect it. She appreciates it, but she expects coffee. Like whether she has to make it or I make it, she's going to get coffee.
She's going to wake you up.
No, I'm up 2 hours before she gets up.
If she does the coffee before you get up.
No, I'm up 2 hours before her every day. Every day. Every day, 2 hours at least. Usually 2 hours. Yeah, I'm up at 4:45 every morning. But But I have a routine that I follow, and sometimes this week I was like, I know she's got to get out the door because she runs and like so you have to think about these things. But there's a point though, the coffee, it's just a tiny little act of kindness that I need to give her. Don't listen to this. I need to give her that because, and maybe I'm a little selfish, but I need to give it to her because I know it makes her feel special. And so, just that little thing, And I'm not doing it because I'm trying to earn some brownie points. I don't eat brownies. What? I don't eat brownies, but that I don't eat chocolate chips either. The sugar, man. I quit the sugar. So, but that little thing, man. I'm gonna like, y'all. This is like 4-hour counseling tonight. So, I'm gonna do that, right? And so like earlier this week, there were days like when she goes and runs, there's a certain temperature where it's too hot really to run 6 miles. She runs 6 miles, guys. She's running 6 miles. Anyhow, it gets hot running that far, and I'm like, well, she's going to go out and run. She likes to drink the coffee before running, and so I'm going to need to make sure the coffee's done sooner. So my little routine that I have, y'all, I'm weird. I've got like, I do this and I do this. And I can tell you to the absolute exact thing, every step I take from the moment my eyes open in the morning to the moment I walk that coffee into her. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Everything I do. And it's like exactly the same every day. Like all these things. Because I'm weird and I have routine. Yeah. It's a routine. You do the routine. I eat the same breakfast every morning, and I make it the same way. I'm weird, okay? But, and it works. So, now I do vary, just a slight variation here and there. Like my pre-workout thing, it depends on what we have and all. But like, I thought, well, okay, if I want to have this ready, I can take this step that I do after this thing, and I can put it over here, and then I can have that ready. But there are reasons that I do the certain steps. I hand grind the coffee, and if you hand grind the coffee and you put it in the coffee maker, and then you put the water in like within 2 minutes, it's like a different kind of fresh. All right? But if she needs it earlier, and I know that my workout, because sometimes I work on claims while I'm eating my pre-workout and drinking my water. My pre-workout's just a yogurt and a banana, okay? It's not like I'm hitting the caffeine stuff. I just drink water, yogurt and a banana, and a B12 tab. So I'll work on claims, and sometimes I'll lose track of time on that, and I'm like, oh man, I've got a 20-minute boxing workout, and then I've got like a 30-minute calisthenics workout, and it's going to be, 7:20 by the time I can grind the coffee. And so I'm like, okay, so before I start the boxing workout, I'm going to grind the coffee. It won't be ultra fresh, but it'll be fresh. I'm going to grind the coffee. I'm going to put it in the French press, and then I'm going to get, and then I'm going to start my workout. I'm going to turn the stove on for the tea kettle, and I'm going to do my workout. When it starts screaming, pause. Dump it, okay, back to my workout, and then I'm going to get done with that, and then I can pour the coffee, and it'll be brewed to the right, and it's like, but those are little things that, I'm doing my routine, and I'm centering, I'm making sure that I can do that little special thing. Yeah, and every day I think, man, I'm going to be in South Carolina for 3 months, and I'm not going to get to do this. I mean, she'll figure out coffee, I'm sure, but I'm not going to get to do it. And every morning I'm going to wake up in South Carolina, and I'm going to be like, man. And I'm probably going to have one of those dumb drip coffee makers in my hotel room down there at training. But I'll be okay. I'll make it. But each thing though, and I'm talking about like, there are other things that you do, once in a while. Sometimes you buy some I haven't done this in a while, but sometimes you buy like these sticky notes, and you write little notes and stick them places. Like, I'll tell you, y'all, none of you are married. Never mind. Okay, for those of you married online, when they go to the ladies' conference, they're out of the house. You can go around, and Brother Ramsey, watch this. You can go around, you can write little notes, and you can sneak around in all their private stuff and hide the notes everywhere. If I have time, hopefully I'll have time. But you can do those things, right? And then they find, and I like, you know what? You can do this for your kids and for family and stuff. I do that like in like toward the fall before wintertime comes. A lot of times I'll write little notes to my kids and I'll stick it in their coat pockets. And they'll find the notes when they go sledding. It's like, it's great because you can just write a little note, you're thinking about them, and what you're doing, you're planting a little seed that they're going to harvest 3 months from now, or different little things, and sometimes I'll slip notes in my kids' Bibles, or I'll slip notes in, different places, because it's just that little touch. I'm thinking about you. It's good to tell somebody, text them, say, I'm praying for you, I'm thinking about you. But little things here and there, that people see. They're like, hey, what's that? Like when you're little back in the 1900s and you go to school and you got your little lunchbox and you get and you open it up and you start eating your mac and cheese sandwich. And I'm just kidding. You start eating your peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you bite into it and there's a note inside. No, I'm kidding. But sometimes you got a note in your lunchbox or your lunch bag. And you're like, hey, Mom wrote me a note. What's it say? Hey, read this. I can't read. Right? But those are little things. Every area of our lives, there are little things like that. And if we pay attention to little details, they pay off. And it's not just about us getting the payoff. It's about us being a real value to other people's lives. If I want to help somebody set themselves up for success, I'm going to teach them that little thing. And then he or she is going to do that little thing. And then the next time, the next little thing. You help people build successful businesses that way. You help people build successful lives that way. You help people build successful relationships that way. All of that, it's little by little. And it's the concept of investing. When Solomon said, cast your bread on many waters, and due time, it's gonna come back around, right? I'm paraphrasing there, right? But he says there is that holdeth, right? Or there is that, how's that go? Withholdeth, right? And then doesn't get anything. I'm just going to paraphrase it. But there is that that spreadeth abroad, and it tends to increase. That's the way that now, just throwing stuff everywhere, you end up with seeds all over the place. But if you strategically place things, it's not about just getting what you can get right now. Sometimes you've got to look ahead and say, okay, and it's not always about what you can get. Sometimes it's about, okay, if I were to do this here, that person, now, I don't need anything from them except to see them succeed. And so sometimes it's like, what, if I give this person that bit of knowledge or help them to get over that little threshold there, they'll be able to really succeed over here. They'll be able to really work this thing out, right? And that, like I said, that goes relationships. Often we think about finance or whatever, but it goes for everything in our lives. And so, when we find that we've been carrying around a fence, you've got to get rid of the fence. And then we've got to build something that isn't going to be unstable. Build something that's going to be good for everybody involved. Most importantly, good for God. Right? And I know I did a lot of lecture tonight. Didn't give you 1, 2, 3 ABC points and stuff, but hopefully it's useful for your life. The idea is that we're taking some of the principles from the morning sermon and your thoughts and making it connect with daily living. That was the point of the Sunday review. I didn't have like a master plan. Sometimes we've got to make it real, have a real conversation. I know this wasn't like ceremony, traditional church service, right? In fact, I didn't even stand behind the pulpit most of the time, right? But the idea is to give you usable, not that the preaching isn't usable, it is, but sometimes you got to make the rubber meet the road, right? And so that can be helpful. And while y'all stuff your faces full of pizza, if you have other questions, you can ask me. We can sit and talk. It's fine. We can be offline and